Welcome to Pay Yourself Summit. I'm your host, Terry Ramsey, and today I am joined by Kassi Heidenreich of the SalesThread, creating the difference between selling and scaling. Today we are talking about getting sales in your business, and I feel like I'm going to learn so much from this talk today and also feel very much equally like I'm going to get my ass handed to me. So thank you, Kassi, so much for being with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm certainly honored to be chatting with you today, Terry.
Great. To begin, let's go ahead and start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it's led to what you do today?
Yeah, so I've spent the last 29 years in corporate sales, ranging from Fortune 500 companies down to smaller businesses. I've worked and li lived and worked in Central America, and sales has just always been a part of my life and my career. I refer to myself as a recovering perfectionist who left the corporate world to help founders and sales teams, to stop chasing and start selling. I created the SalesThread framework to help people sell the way they actually want to and, be more confident, relationship based, and with a clear process.
Love that. So, um, my first question for you
Mhm.
is sales synonymous with marketing? Are they one and the same, or do I need to think about them completely different?
I think about them completely different. I've always found, and so working with Fortune 500 companies, even smaller businesses, yes, sales and marketing, we're married at the hip, but I want you to think about sales and marketing a little bit separately. So, marketing gets people in the room where sales builds the relationship and helps them make a decision. So they are separate, but both are very, very important. And sales is where clarity and trust and connection happen. And that's the part that people really need to get straight because right now we're in an age of AI that is, really kind of taking over. But your AI can be great, but your closing on the back end doesn't always match up with the AI. So
Mm.
there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that I've gotten pulled into also. Like I've been like, wow, AI's here. Maybe I need to look at selling a little bit differently, but I keep coming back. I keep getting grounded in the fundamentals that I've used my entire career. It's like, yes, we need that too, but we also still need to know how to sell. And I think that's where people fall in one direction. They get too much on social media and not enough on their skill set. And I think that that's a huge gap that I believe. And for the last year when AI really came out, I kept thinking, am I obsolete? Am I, are people just going to need trained bots to teach them how to sell? I think there is a space for it, but I also think you really still need to be able to sharpen your skill set to close these deals.
I think it is such a skill set in the end, and I think that the world is very much focused on the leads and the funnels and everything else. It's like, well,
Yes.
then how do you close it? So I'm super excited about this
Yeah,
topic for today.
absolutely.
So it in business, you are going to hear no. It's going to happen. I say no to businesses all the time, so others will to me. But it is such a cringe in the sales process whenever I will get ghosted in the middle of that process.
Yeah.
I'm fine hearing no, but ghosting feels like something else. So, how can ghosting be avoided from a potential client?
Yeah. Well, first, I want you to think about maybe reframing those no's because I get excited when somebody tells me no. Because usually, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hear no, but that no just means I'm one step closer to my yes.
Huh.
And so I look at it from a completely different perspective also. Also, I think too that, you know, when you think about your no's, you also want to think about like they're saying no because they're not aligned with what it is that you're selling. And quite honestly, if you really want to scale your business, you want to make sure that you have aligned clients in your portfolio because we don't want them coming in the front door and leaving out the back door. Or maybe there's a time period where it doesn't make sense to work with you after that time period. So, I've worked with coaches in the past where I've learned what I've needed to learn and then I move on, right? If you really want to scale a business, you need to have a next step for them. And so at the very beginning, if they're saying no, they're doing you a favor because it's going to be a revolving door if you cannot keep them in your pipeline for an extended period of time. So personally, I get very excited to be like, okay, awesome. I tell people I want to help you get to your heck yes or your heck no, and that we are aligned through that whole process. And you wouldn't believe how many people get referred to me who from people who have said no just because they appreciated that I was genuinely concerned about making sure that they got exactly what they needed. There might be a circumstance where I'm offering one thing, but maybe somebody's offering an operational piece on the back end with their ops team. And in that circumstance, I am not their best solution. I'm not their best solution. I am very much focused on sales. So in that situation, I would say like, look, I know someone who does what I do and is very much aligned with my process, but they also have this operational piece on the back end. I think they'd be a much better fit for you. And if you want to do me a favor in the future, if you liked working with me and what you've experienced, here's where here's the type of person I want to work with. And so you get a lot of recommendations just by being a good person even when you're not aligned in sales. But really, what your question was is how do you prevent being ghosted? And it really comes down to making sure that you own the process. So there's a little thing I call FCDs, which stands for Future Connect Dates. And this is what I use to help weed out people who are not serious and also to make sure that my sales process keeps moving forward. And so that really looks like this, Terry. So, say you are giving someone a quote for bookkeeping. What most people do is they say, great, Mr. Customer, I'm gonna get you that quote and I'm gonna send it to you this week. Wrong. What you need to do is you need to say something like, I'm gonna have that quote ready for you by Thursday. Let's set a date to review it together. Because
Mm,
number one, I don't believe in leaving my customers any homework. And even though the information on the quote might be clear to me, it may not be clear to them, and they've got so much stuff going on and they actually have to set time aside to review the quote. Now you're just in purgatory. Not sure if they actually got the email, just checking in. This is where you see these things, just checking in. And honestly, many times, even though you've already been copied on an email chain, I can't even tell you how many times I end up in somebody's spam. So they may not have even received the quote, but if you have a future connect date on your calendar where you're going to sit down and review that quote together, number one, you're going to be able to get their feedback in real time, but it just keeps the sales process moving faster. And so the other thing that I do too is I'm going to make this as simple as possible for everyone. If somebody and I use all of this, this is all of this I use in my personal life too. If somebody comes up to me and be like, you know what, we should get coffee sometime. And then you say, you know what, we should. What are the chances of getting coffee with that person?
it's like every single time you connect with a friend going, we should hang out.
Yes.
You don't ever
No one,
hang out. Yes.
no one wants to put it on their calendar. And so then when you say things like, pull out your calendar, let's take a look. Well, I'm really busy over the next few weeks. And, actually, school's starting up. And why don't we connect in a couple of months? The chances of that person actually reaching out to me to have coffee with me, they're not serious, right? They don't really want to get coffee. They just said that. And bless their heart, they were just being nice, right? FCDs make your customer rise. If you're not willing to put me on your calendar, you're probably not very serious.
Hmm.
Or if somebody says to me, no, Cassie, just send me the quote via email. I'm probably not going to put too much time into that. I'll probably follow up with you two or three times, but I'm not going to like depend on you in my pipeline. And so that's where you need to decide, okay, they're not very serious. I'm going to set that one in the, if it happens, I'll be happy, but I'm going to go focus on the other things. Because all these things that just float around in our head of things that we might have or sales that we might get, they're just distractions from actually closing deals. And so I use it as a filtering process that if you're not even willing to sit down and go over a quote that I prepared specifically for you, um, you don't really want to work with me. And that's okay. Because there's people out there that don't want to hurt your feelings.
Hmm.
And they feel bad saying no. It was really interesting. I had a door-to-door salesperson come to my door. And there was something off. but there was something really good about their sales process, but there was just something a little bit off. And I was chatting with another neighbor about it, and she had said to me, I just have a hard time telling people no. And I said, oh, that's actually really good to know. My house needs cleaning right now. What are you going to do?
I love it.
So I'm just saying there are people out there that are just, they have a hard time saying no. And to me, I want to get you to no or to yes as quickly as possible. And FCDs are a great filtering process for that. And there's no guesswork. You're either going to meet with me, you're not going to meet with me. You should have an FCD after every single step in your sales process. All right, let me give you another example of why FCDs are powerful. I have a situation, and this is just, when you have a savvy buyer who's busy, if you're selling cupcakes, you're not going to have this many touches, but also it takes at least 5 to 7 touches for someone to convert. So take the pressure off yourself. If you're meeting someone for the first time, that's one touch. Let me tell you about my sales process, and I have my information right here. I'm going to tell you exactly how many touches this has taken. Um, I've had 19 text, 3 in-person meetings. I've been ghosted 5 times, and I'm still in the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
Because every single step of the way, and I'm going to just call this person Max, okay? Max, how much time do you think you need in order to figure this out? Follow up with me on Tuesday. Okay. I'm going to send you an invite that's on your calendar and my calendar. I need you to hold me accountable. That I'm going to text you on Tuesday. It'll be from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's not even going to take up time on your calendar. It's just a reminder for you and me both that I'm coming to look for you. And
Mm,
they love it. They love I love it when somebody drives the sales process for me, that they're putting connect dates on my calendar, that they're driving the process. I'm always like, yes, get it. Yes. Yes, because I am so busy, right?
yes.
Like as a customer, as your customer, I'm busy. I've got 2 kids, I got a household to run, I got a business. And sometimes when I am ghosting people and they reach out to me for the third time, I'm like, oh my gosh, first and foremost, thank you for being persistent because I've been so busy. I didn't mean to let this thing go on so long. But, you got to understand that your buyer is busy. And as long as you get permission, every time I'm getting permission, what when's a good time for me to follow up with you? Follow up with me on Tuesday. Great. I'm going to send you a future connect date for Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's not going to take up any time on your calendar. You know I'm coming to look for you, and it'll be in a text. And many times they'll ghost me there. And I will find a different way to check back in with them. Now, the one that I told you about where he ghosted me 5 times, his father just passed away.
Mm,
He wasn't saying that in text. Most people, after being ghosted 5 times. And so, anyway, I had a great conversation with him about 2 weeks ago, and he told me the whole story. And he said, look, I really like you, and I really want to work with you. And it's not a no, it's just a not right now.
right.
Right. And so I figured out it was a budget thing. And so I downsold and said, hey, why don't we carve out one little spot in this sales process that has a lot of impact, very low, um, very low like financial commitment. And we're going to work on this one problem that you said was kind of getting in your way. Let's go from there. And that turned that conversation back into call me when you get back from your vacation
Mm,
and let's set up a meeting versus let's look at it in the beginning of the year.
yeah.
So all sorts of different levels of different ways that you can use FCDs and but it's more so the FCD is more so about driving the process and being in charge and leading your customer with permission. Everything I get is permission based. And what I mean by that is it's consensual. He asked me to follow up with him on Tuesday, right? He asked me to keep trying him. He gave me dates that if you don't hear from me by this date, call me on this date. And I do. And I get ghosted. And I repeat. And you just have to stay in that process. And I think the other piece of being ghosted, I think we make it mean something it doesn't,
Mm,
right? So if you look at the process in the sale that I was just speaking about, I could have easily been like, Okay, I have texted him and I've emailed him and he's not calling me back. He's not interested. No, his dad died, right? And so we make it about ourselves that we did something wrong or that they're that we're not good enough or they're just not interested and they're just not good at saying no. That's where the FCD comes in, right? We're filtering them with an FCD. Why don't I send you the quote and we'll set up a date to review the quote? No, just send it to me. Good. I already know. That's a no,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so those are just a few ways that I filter it. I also have a pretty good gut instinct. And if it's not super aligned, like with your ICP, your ideal client profile, many of us try to sell to everyone. I literally just got off a branding call with my branding team, and they're like, we need to niche this down. You can't sell sales to everyone. I'm like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. And so he's like, no, 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 we're going to start with like this market and then we're going to go this direction. And then it just all became clear to me. But, um, really making sure that the client is aligned and, and really all of this stuff that I talk about in sales, you have to understand the mindset piece to me is if you want to have scalable sales, if you want these people to stay and come in the front door and stay versus leaving out the back door, you've got to make sure that your client is winning just
Mm.
as much as you're winning and you're creating these win-win situations. And so I'm constantly filtering through my vision. How would this land for me if I were the client? How would this feel? Are they really winning? And that piece of it, the mindset piece of it, and this goes into your networking. I have many people telling me all the time, I don't like networking because everybody wants something from me. I'm like, you're doing it all wrong. You walk into a room, it's what can I give away as quickly as possible? How can I add value for someone? Who can I connect somebody with that would be meaningful for them? And when you start thinking that way, it's like a 401k. Sure, you're going to
Mhm.
invest in it in one networking meeting and it might pay off. But over time, the rule of sevens is you're going to double your investment every 7 years. The same thing happens with networking. It's, but it's all about making sure that the other person wins. And I used to sell from a place of scarcity, like I really need this sale, right? Like I really need it. And even though I was, in medical sales and standing in rooms with surgeons, it was like I wasn't necessarily thinking, and I was thinking about the patient and the patient outcomes and how much better this would make their process and for their patients and how do we measure that and blah blah blah. But it really was coming from a place of scarcity. Like I need this sale. I
Yeah.
need to get to that quota. I need to hit that financial mark.
Which is not a fun place to be.
No, it's terrible. And that's where that perfectionism comes in. It's not a great place to sell from. So I really sell from a place of abundance. I believe that there's enough business for all of us. I believe that when you sell from a place of abundance, you get aligned clients versus unaligned clients. And, it also is a great way to um, what's the word I'm like collaborate with your competitors. So, for example, if you have a scarcity mindset and maybe you're selling remodeling, but you take jobs up to $20,000. What if there's a remodeler out there that only does $20,000 and up?
Mm.
That's a fantastic referral partner.
Yes,
But
it
if you
is.
have a
Hmm.
scarcity mindset, you're going to believe that they're a competitor. Whereas it's like, look, if you treat your customers this way, and I've got a customer that is outside of my scope, I'd love to be able to refer them to you. Would you be open to considering each other networking partners? And you can send me the people that the jobs are too small for you, and it's a happy marriage. But that's what an abundant mindset looks like on paper, right? You collaborate with your competitors. I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah.
It's great. Those connections are awesome. So,
Yeah.
so with with my business, for instance, bookkeeping matchup,
Yeah,
there's a process involved. It's not just selling a cupcake right off the bat, And I meet with a client, I find the connection, the bookkeepers that would work well with them. I send them all the bookkeepers' proposals, and then sometimes it feels like twiddling thumbs waiting on an answer. I'm trying to people please a bit and be respectful of another entrepreneur's time. And sometimes it takes following up several times. What can I do to streamline this sales process? What can I do to like really make this stronger for myself?
yeah, that is such a great question, Terry. I would say, okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So your process is you meet with a customer, you basically match them up with a few bookkeepers that
Hmm.
might be a good fit, and then you present those to them in a quote form.
Yes. So all of the proposals that they had, all their prices and information about every single bookkeeper is in a
Yeah,
proposal. Um, And then sometimes they're not ready to jump on which one just yet, or they want to think about it. So I feel like it's just sometimes that process really gets stretched out.
yeah.
So what can I do to help streamline the sales with this
Yeah.
process?
So number one, this may not be the obvious thing, but I really think that comes back to the questions that you're asking the client. And
Hmm.
so there's three things I'm always trying to establish. What is the timeline? What's the budget? And what's the value for the
Mm,
customer? What's the win? And so understanding like what by not having bookkeeping in your business, can you quantify the amount of time that it's costing them? So,
mm,
for example, if the owner is getting to a point where they're doing their own bookkeeping, but they really need a bookkeeper, what would that time mean for them? And
mm,
really digging into those questions and answers that they're giving you so that if you get into a situation where they're stalling, the situation you can bring back up and say, listen, you already quantified for me that you're losing 10 hours a month, and 10 hours a month to you and your line of business, say you're an attorney, that equates to $3,000 a month or whatever their hourly rate is. Anchor that piece into what it's costing them.
mm,
So for example, I had a client who was trying to get another client who he's in the IT business, and he was sharing that he had a client that was not wanting to get into a monthly service, but the website was always down. And when the website is down, he uses other attorneys in his practice to go after and figure out why the website's down. And so now when now people who make 350 bucks an hour are chasing down problems that could be solved for 300 bucks a month, like that is quantifiable. So really understanding your client's pain point is number one. Number two is there's a reason why you paired those three bookkeepers with that person. And I think it would be a great piece to say, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm going to have these quotes ready for you by Thursday. Let's set up our next call so that we can go over those together. I'll send them to you prior, but I want to talk through why I think these people are a good fit because that's where the relationship gets
hmm
built. You get to say things like, I heard you mention this, that you wanted someone who spoke two languages, or I heard from you that, they mentioned this pain point, and here's why I think this person would be a great fit for you. And that really kind of helps build that relationship for the bookkeepers and for yourself prior to them ever even interacting with them. So you remind me of somebody who kind of sets the stage
I
of
try to. Yeah.
and what's going to be a successful relationship. And here's why I paired them with you because they have these strengths. They over communicate, and you said that you wanted this. So, bringing everything that you learned from that initial call of their wants and needs and what's driving the change. And also, if they're not really serious, you need to establish that in the beginning of the process by asking the question, how ready are you to pull the trigger on this?
Mm.
What's it costing you not to pull the trigger? And that's why those questions are so important in the process so that you can tie them back to the pain point. And
It's
remember, this is all consensual.
mhm.
They gave us all this information. We're just trying to help them get to their goal. And when your customer realizes that you're trying to create a win-win situation and you're tenaciously going after that for them, I tell my customers this. Okay, you told me you needed this turnaround in 2 weeks because the problem is actually costing you X amount of money, and here's the value that I can bring for you. So you're going to have to forgive me to get this timeline done by X date. Here's what we're going to need to do, and telling them your process. Here's my process. In order to get this, I'm going to need you to send all of your credentialing in for your bank accounts and XYZ and this in order to get this turned on by this date. Are you able to do that? Get buy-in in every step of that process. And so if they're not doing what they need to do, you get to say, and that's why I always tell them, your problem is now my problem. And I'm going to tenaciously go after it until we get it fixed. In order to do that, I'm going to need to be able to get a hold of you. Do you
Hmm.
prefer text, phone, or email? And let them tell you so that I don't sit there and think, oh, they're not interested. They're not calling me back. They're not answering my questions. I'm already telling them I'm coming for you because you told me we're doing X, Y, and Z, and that's what we're doing.
And I love that it's from them defining it. So I love that you're having them define how important is finding a bookkeeper for you.
Yes.
What is the timeline that you have in mind? But also let me push that a little bit about like how valuable this could be to you if you
Yes.
did get this solved sooner. So I love that you're actually defining that with them in the process before it even starts, so that whenever you're trying to get a little bit more pushy, you can go in and help them out. But it's also vetting for some seriousness. I love that that's kind of what you're doing. And then you get to use that later whenever you're like,
Yeah.
I'm following up because this was important to you, remember?
Yes.
Which is
Yes.
really great.
Yes. And they know that you're advocating for them, right? That's what creates the relationship. So if I wanted to blend in sales, if I just wanted to blend in with all the other vendors, here are the things that I would do. I would quit after two follow-ups. I would say just checking in, like if you want to blend in, like what are some ways, Terry, that you think blending in your industry would look like? What does that
Just
look like for
the
you?
just checking in, the follow up, and I'm so guilty of it myself. So I love that we're finding different ways around that.
Yeah, 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 totally. So
Yeah.
if you really want to stand out, you say things like, um, you told me X, Y, and Z is your issue. I'm going to tenaciously go after that. You're going to have to tell me to stop if you want me to stop, right? It's all consensual. That way I can clear the path. I don't feel guilty about following up and doing what I was asked to do. But yeah, that's I don't know. Maybe it's pushy, but I don't feel like it's pushy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Not necessarily the pushiness, but sometimes sales in general can sometimes feel slimy. I
Yeah,
think that we've been sold things in slimy ways where we understand like how sales can feel on the receiving end. So sometimes doing sales can also just feel slimy naturally. So
yeah,
I've gotten better at this because I genuinely do care about my clients, but I still like there is still so much of a guard that clients put up naturally
yeah.
because of this. So what can I do to help break this barrier?
Yeah. Well, number one, that all comes down to mindset. So when you think about the mindset, if your intentions as somebody who's selling are in the right place, like for example, are you convicted in making sure that your client wins?
Hmm.
If your intentions are in the right spot, then you'll never have anything to apologize for, ever. Because if people know that I am tenacious because I want them to win. I'm always looking out for them, always making sure. There are times where my solution doesn't make sense. And I always say, if I can't move the needle for you, I will be the first one to tell you. There may be a better solution out there and it may not be me, right? And so I think people feel that. And when I think one of the things that makes people realize that they're not working with, and I hate to even say this because I feel like used car salesmen have come a very long way than when we used to coin that term. But I think it's like a common term that, when you think about slimy, pushy sales, people mention that a lot. Maybe I shouldn't mention that, but um, I think the things that feel slimy is when you don't feel heard.
Hmm.
I think when you sit down and you speak with someone, so say maybe you're in the process of you met somebody at an event, there's a little bit of synergy, it leads it into another conversation. Let's set up a meeting and let me tell you about my services. So you go in, and most people, the first thing that they do is they just bleh, they just
Mhm.
puke all of the services and all the products that they sell. What you need to do is you need to go first in and start asking questions. So I look at sales like a blank canvas. I don't have any preconceived notions. I know a little bit about why I'm going in there, but I don't want to assume the solution because how can you pitch a solution when you don't really know what the problem is?
Mhm.
And I think that making sure that you stand out, not in a slimy way, comes down to the types of questions you ask. And there's open-ended questions and there's closed questions. And you want to go after the open-ended questions, which start with, tell me about a time, or why is this important to you? They typically start with very specific words. That's a question you can't say yes or no to. Like, how is, you know, um, do you want to get a bookkeeper? Yes. It's very different than saying, like, tell me about why I'm here today. Tell me about why you're considering a bookkeeper. Very open-ended questions. And they're going to tell me some details. And quite honestly, I get so frustrated writing, I type faster. So one of the first things I tell my clients when I walk in is like, I'm typing, I'm not on here texting, I'm being very present with you. It's just that I type faster than I can write and I don't want to miss any details. So I'm
Mhm.
like a court transcriber when I take notes because there's things that they're telling me that I can loop back into later. For example, sometimes they'll say like, we'll have to check with Bob. Most people would just brush over that. Who's Bob? Tell me about Bob. Well, Bob's our CFO.
Mm.
Bob, okay, what is Bob's role in this process? Well, Bob has to sign off on things. Okay, tell me more about that. Well, whenever we get a contract, we send it over to him, and it typically takes 4 to 6 weeks to get through legal. Why does it take 4 to 6 weeks? Well, because most people come to us and they want 15-day terms. We don't do anything under 30. It's really good information to know so that
Mhm.
you can pre-vet that with your company or whoever. Maybe it's just you. And you can say like, can we do over 30-day terms? You just shrunk your sales cycle. You just shrunk it. And so that's another point. I probably digressed a little bit, but really it comes down to asking the right questions and making sure that they feel seen and heard and in a very genuine way. Because remember, I'm telling you, I'm always my view, my lens is how can I make sure that they win?
Mhm.
They've just told me that they don't have the budget for X, Y, and Z, but they need to do this piece of it. So rather than sell them the whole solution, why don't I carve out this one little piece just to get my foot in the door and add some value for these people, right? And it really comes down to asking those questions. And by the end of it, I've got this beautiful painting in front of me with all the questions that they've answered. They're all brush strokes, and I've got this piece of artwork for them. And I turn it around and I say, here's what you told me.
Hmm.
Here's the picture that I'm seeing. And I think if we did X, Y, and Z, I think that would solve this issue. In fact, I know it would solve this issue. And here are some case studies from my clients with similar problems, and here's what we did. And so that kind of stuff builds the relationship. They know they're not just talking to somebody who's trying to just sell them something. They are they're feeling seen and heard. And that's genuinely how you should have a conversation in general. You should have that same conversation with your spouse. You should treat your friends that way. And so I think it just really comes down to making sure that people feel seen and heard. And that to me is by asking the right questions before the pitch. Does that
So
make sense?
yeah, absolutely it does. So if you're saying the asking the right questions, let's talk about the right words. So
Yeah.
if I am in a sales call, I want the magic words that are going to get me the sale.
Yeah.
Any advice on what to say during sales calls that works like a charm,
Okay.
coming from a sales expert?
Yeah. So, now keep in mind, I always have to preface this because, you have to remember that my number one intention is making sure that you win, Terry,
Mhm.
right? I want to make sure that you win. I want to make sure my clients win. Because if they win, I'll win too, right? And so I want to, I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to come in and say the things that all the buzzy words that people say. I actually come in and say, you know what? I'm not really sure we're the right fit for each other. But I think it lends itself another conversation. Let's dig through this to see if I am the right fit. That when somebody decides that they're not sure if they want to work with me, I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to work with me? Like, it's not that I don't want to work with you, but it's more so let's make sure I'm the right fit for you. So I like to say I use very balanced language. Things like I'm not sure if I'm not sure I'm the right solution for you, but let's dig in and kind of figure out what the problem is and we'll go from there. And
Mm.
if I don't have someone, if I'm not the right fit, I may have somebody in my network to help you, right? If you're not really sure if they're right or not. I always use permission based. So rather than say, I'm going to follow up with you on Thursday, well, they might not be ready for that. I ask permission. When would be a good time for me to follow up with you? And many times when I get it's not a no, but it's not a yes, I'm actually thinking like 6 months. And they're like, no, just give me a month. So I don't want to project my own limiting beliefs on them. I ask for permission.
Mm.
What feels like a good time for me to follow up with you? Would it be okay if we tried this? Would you be open to? So that they're the ones saying they're leading. You're leading, but they're leading, right? And so I'm trying to think of some more phrases that I use, but it really comes down to letting letting them lead while you're leading the process, right?
Yeah. This
And
has
giving
been
them
fantastic. I
ownership.
think I've learned so much just in this little bit of time from you. So I truly appreciate you being here. Is there any like last little thing that you would say, like, I really want to bring home this point, reiterate it, or something else that we've missed that you're just like, if I could get every single entrepreneur and business owner just to get this,
Yeah.
what would you have to say?
Well, I mean, I honestly feel like the three things. So SalesThread was built off of the idea of a thread, and the thread is kind of like what weaves us all together. It's a connection point of people that we work with, and there are people, I believe that there are people out there that we are just bound to work with. And even though there might be another bookkeeper out there, Terry, somebody out there needs to hear what you have to say and your voice and the way that you approach things. And you are unique. You're the only person that can get them across that finish line. And they've heard it a million times before, but you're that voice. And so every day when I think about I get up every day, I put myself on social media, I do things like this because I know there's a entrepreneur out there that needs me, and the way that I say things or the way that I do things is the only way it's going to get through to them. And it's going to be the one thing or the voice that changes them. Have you ever had that in your life, Terry, where you like, I've heard this 1,000 times, but I didn't hear it until you said it, right?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, like, a lot of like business advice is already out there, but for some
Yeah,
reason, just like hearing it from like one person, like even just like right now, I've heard sales things before, but
yeah,
things that you're putting into place, I'm just like, yes, that like makes so much sense. Just like
yeah.
hearing it the way that you're putting it in, just like everything else. So 1,000% all the time.
Yeah. So that's what drives me every day is that I literally get up every day and do what I do, and I make an idiot out of myself. I'm like, I don't even know if this will, I don't know if it'll be successful if I do X, Y, and Z, but I'm willing to try, I'm willing to fail. And really in business, it's the people who are willing to be misunderstood the longest are the ones that are successful. And back to the sales thread piece of it, sales to me is made up of three things. That's your mindset, your actions, and your words.
Mm.
And those are the fibers of each one of those threads. And if you weave those three things into your sales process, you would not believe how free you will feel by selling in this way. So, um, that's my framework, and that's what I teach.
I have so appreciated hearing all of your information, all of your knowledge, all of your advice. Thank you for giving me advice on this call too, for what to do with my bookkeeping matchup business. Really appreciated having you on here. You are a plethora of knowledge, and I know that the audience listening to is learning a whole lot. So, if they want to continue being in the world of Kassi,
Yeah.
if they want to go ahead and follow you or work with you, tell them where to find you, and then also tell us a little bit about your Thread Force framework.
Okay. Yeah. Um, when it comes to, so really it's actually the sales thread framework. Threadforce is one of the products that I have. So
Okay.
you can work with me one to one. I have one to one coaching. I also work I do a peer group for VP of sales and sales directors. And then I also do a course called Threadforce, which is where you would learn all of this stuff that I'm talking about. It's kind of the toolbox that we use. But you can find me on Instagram. All of my handles are at SalesThread, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. You can find me under my name, Kassi Heidenreich, and I also have a page for SalesThread. So back to the framework that you had asked me about. Mindset, that's really what we're doing there is showing you how to shift from pressure to partnership. In the actions column, we're creating clear custom sales path using tools like FCDs. And in the words, we're working on saying the right things at the right time to build trust and close with confidence. So that's really the guts of my framework, and it works whether you're selling high ticket services, managing a pipeline, or just trying to get a first few clients.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you can find all of Cassie's information on the same page that you found this interview, all of her socials, her bio, everything else. But Cassie, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing with our audience and sharing your many nuggets of knowledge for us to go ahead and close deals. We truly appreciate having you on today.
Yeah, thank you. And I also have a free gift for the
Ooh,
audience.
tell them about it.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, sorry, I almost forgot. So the free gift is a strategy to cut ghosting to 0%. Free
Beautiful.
1 hour. Yes, yes, I'm so excited. So it's a free 1 hour training. I'm giving attendees a live Zoom training on how to use FCDs, Future Connect dates, to eliminate ghosting. And we're going to walk through how to structure your sales process so your follow-up isn't guesswork. You'll leave with scripts, strategy, and confidence.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for giving that. And again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.